Hi, Kevin May, Editor-in-Chief of PhocusWire. This is the PundIT Show number 12. Regular listeners will know that these are just things that you can listen to normally, but we've broken with convention here because we're at the Phocuswright conference and we're videoing our weekly podcast. So these are our trio of stunning guests. Thank you very much. You're Steve Davies from Kiwi.com, Travis Pittman from TourRadar, and last but no means least, obviously, Stephan, old friend, Stephan Ekberg from TravelStart. So greetings, gentlemen. Welcome to Amsterdam, first of all. So the PundIT Show, we just sit around and have a chat for about 20 minutes, but I mean, and it's as light as that, really. I mean, regular listeners will know that it's not very formal, but you know, one of the things we'll start with you, Steve. I mean, what's kind of the burning issue of the year for you so far? What's been occupying your attention?
I guess the thing that keeps me awake at night, or things that I'm worrying about mostly, is really around data. So being CMO of the business, we've got to figure out, like many other businesses, the challenges of what your attribution looks like, what the different sources of data are for your marketing campaigns, and then how you allocate future marketing funds. And nobody really has a silver bullet. We've been talking with lots of other firms in the same kind of position. We're continuing to scale organically, which is great, but then looking at future growth, what are the sources of traffic that we're going to need to diversify into? So yeah, those are the main things that are keeping me busy.
Right, okay, so Stephan, you're the CEO of the company, you don't need to worry about data or anything like that, but the person in your company who does, do you think they have the same kind of worries that that keep Steve awake?
Yeah, I think so I'm of course, I always like to swim against the tide when it comes to these issues, and I think the big problem with data today, I think it's to some degree, it's we don't have yet perfect information, so you have to still rely on people to be able to connect the dots, and finding people who can connect the dots is so bloody hard. And so I think that's to some degree what we're struggling with. I think we hire smarter and smarter people, and yet I find it harder and harder to find evidence to the facts that I believe in, that I can see with my gut, that I already know. And I think that comes, of course, with decades of being in the trenches, being beaten and scarred to death almost, and of course, so they have some way to catch up. They're still the data analysts. I find certain things they do really, really well, but driving the company from sort of a macro level with the data, I'm still struggling with that.
Yeah, okay. Travis, same kind of question. I mean, Are you worried as much as Steve is?
Worried, I'm not sure.
Really worried.
I'm not sure.
Implying the wrong thing there. But no, just the thing that keeps Steve awake, at least.
Yeah. From my side, the burning issues has been on scaling, so actually building the team out, and it kind of feeds into what you're saying, actually finding world-class people who have got experience in this stuff. So it's still relatively new from what I see. The people I've interviewed who are kind of at the leading edge, there's a lot of Russian companies actually at the leading edge of BI stuff, which we have been trying to get some people from there. Some of the rocket internet companies actually have some pretty good handle on data and BI. But yeah, generally we've been just scaling up every part of the team, a lot of product tech and business intelligence. We've actually been working on our own product for the last 18 months. So we've been building out an attribution and cookie tracking and basically recommendation engine, and we're finally getting it out there. So we've run in the last 4 weeks tests where we're seeing massive uplifts because of the recommendations we're actually providing to customers through the data we're actually collecting. So I think it's as early as possible to capture the data. I think working out what to do with it is the challenge. And I think that's one thing I've struggled in our team a little bit, is getting dashboards and things that provide clarity where you can take simplistic things out of the data, because you can just start swimming around with data. But if you have a very simple dashboard where you can start and say, okay, here's a problem, or here's where we can actually have an opportunity, I think that's the key, and experienced people you need for that.
And there's the danger of doing a ton of analysis that leads you into that kind of analysis paralysis, where what you really need is the insight that comes out of the data to be able to make informed decisions. And then for me, it's then how do I have those conversations with other leadership team members to make sure that we can actually move forward in terms of product development or marketing channel development, whatever that might look like, and building a plan around it. So yeah. Big data is great, but you've got to be able to use it, right?
I'll give you one. It's such a dangerous game, when teams or individuals, they have their individual KPIs that they need to, perform on. And so I went to your website, a couple of weeks ago to look at your content for South Africa, and I single out a tour, that was about, $300 or something like that. And for the last 2 weeks, you guys have been chasing me all over the internet, and I'll tell you. For that $300, I don't know what...
You've been waiting for this moment to talk to us.
No, I just remember now, actually. But and I was thinking, so for $300, I don't know what your commission would be, but probably not a whole lot. Yeah. And so you've wasted 2 weeks of display, just chasing me down, which I love when companies do that, because I learned quite a lot as well. But I'll tell you, if I should eventually book, I'll be a loss-making customer. Absolutely, there for sure. So anyway, just go
so
back to your team.
What do you think of that, Travis?
Go back to your team and tell them, what the hell, guys,
No, but that's a great point. Our average booking is like $2,000, so that's where probably the boundaries of the way we bid is probably more based on what we're willing to, where the average kind of lies. So you're probably an outlier in that, okay, yes, we're going to make a loss, but then on another end, we might get a customer who's going to book a $10,000 trip because we chase them around. So the retargeting side of things is, Criteo is just a black box. It works, but it's a black box. You have no idea if it's how to actually tweak it and whatever else. Okay. And so, whereas with Google, you can actually have control over it if you have your own data. I think...
But we compare that to TV advertising, actually. We say, we rather put money into retargeting than TV. At least there is some sort of control.
It's more measurable.
Yes, of course,
TV is still...
Yeah.
Okay, well, I wasn't expecting the first 6 minutes of the podcast to be taken up talking about data and attribution, so...
Well, there you go.
We can talk about it all afternoon.
We don't have to talk about it all afternoon. Specific industry issues that have been going on this year, Steve? Anything that's kind of sprung to mind? Sorry that you're getting the first question each time, but we will change tack in a minute.
The interesting thing is that there still seems to be industry consolidation, particularly with the two big groups buying more businesses and strengthening their product portfolio. That's obviously an industry trend. The great thing, though, at Kiwi.com we've managed to find a gap in the market, and we continue to grow. And so it's not really a concern, it's more of an observation around how the industry continues to change and evolve.
When does it become a concern?
Well, I suppose if we saw a negative growth, period of negative growth, but we're not, so we're profitable and we're still growing.
Okay, there's been some fairly meaty acquisitions going on in your space the last couple of weeks. Yep. Tell us all about how those felt.
From my side, it's called Tours and Activities of Space. What we do is basically the tours side and not the activities or attractions. So I think a lot of the focus we've seen is happening in the activities and the attraction space. So obviously with TripAdvisor and Bokun, and then Booking and the Fair Harbour guys, it's great. It's putting a spotlight and putting actually a focus that this is a real space, and it is one of the hottest sectors of the kind of travel industry these days. So it's taken a long time to get to this point in time, but yeah.
See, I anticipated that you...
Maybe a little bit, but I think it actually is good for competition. And actually, we in the multi-day space, we haven't had a lot of competition. There's been a few come and go, but doing the booking and owning the customer isn't something that really anyone else has done to the same degree that we have. But of course, when you see a big player with very, very deep pockets come in, it is a bit concerning, but I also see it as a challenge that we, try and maintain the lead that we have. I think it's still good. Yeah.
It's still good, right?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Well, we'll ask you in a couple of years whether you still
Yeah,
think
exactly,
it's still good. But maybe when you're owned by Booking.com, of course. But not that you told me anything at all like that. So, Stephan, you've seen consolidation and big players kind of come and go almost, I would imagine. When you see all this stuff happening, what do you down in South Africa?
What I make of it?
Yeah.
Well, the thing is that, there was a couple of things. I mean, from a more philosophical level, I would say, don't panic, because things, normally, if you just focus on building, product or a service that people are willing to pay for, then, eventually you'll be fine. You have to realize that, most of the stuff that we do, all of us here, and actually most of the people coming to these conferences, is very much a long game. And it's the biggest industry in the world, and then and very little of it, even if you look at Booking.com and Expedia and those, if you look at from a global market share, they're still small.
Yeah.
So
and that's one thing they always say whenever people start accusing them of duopolies and things like that. They both always say, well, between us we've got not even yeah, exactly.
And so, from my point, from our business point of view, when it comes to Africa, look, there is so much stuff there that's not done. I mean, we're still paving roads there, and sort of building some sort of infrastructure to prepare the continent for, the digital revolution in the travel space. So we've come, from a traditional OTA space to, especially in the flight space. Then we received some funding, a couple of years ago, and then, the last couple of years we've sort of expanded our thoughts and ideas to encompass more in the larger travel ecosystem, and prepare that for what's coming there in these countries. So that's quite exciting, I find.
What's Booking and Expedia's presence like in South Africa and Africa in general?
Well, I mean, they do a pretty good job there, I would say. If you look at Airbnb, for instance, they've got 100,000 properties in South Africa. Booking.com is, by far, the largest hotel OTA in Africa. Or I maybe shouldn't say by far, but they're
right.
From a brand perspective, Expedia is pretty big there as well when it comes to the hotel space. They've got people on the ground in several countries on the African continent, both of them, and they're doing a really good job there. So yeah.
Okay, I'm glad you mentioned Airbnb, and we'll come to you first this time, Travis. I mean, I think our top two most popular stories of the year so far have been related to Airbnb.
Okay.
And the first one was when they were going to open up to start doing hotels. They signed a deal with SiteMinder, and as a channel manager and stuff like that. What do you sense that Airbnb as a brand needed to expand into other areas? They've got their own trips thing, and they're doing hotels. I mean, what's your general view on Airbnb?
Whether it's a need, I don't necessarily think so, but probably as they, being the size they are, having the amount of capital that they've still got, in their pockets, they obviously can afford to go into other areas. And I think we're seeing it now with Booking's move to say we're end to end. We want to have the customer from when they leave their house, the transfer, the flight, everything, basically everything in between. And I think it's only a logical next step for Airbnb to do the same, to provide that different way. I think the OTAs will address it in a more clinical kind of way, and I think Airbnb will address it in a more holistic, very brand focused, beautiful experience that kind of wows the customer a bit more. Right. Is how I feel they'll attack it than the OTAs.
Okay, so OTA, you would do it in a more clinical kind of way, would you?
I mean, look, I think that, going back to Airbnb, I think, going into, something that you can relate to, where they can expand on their network of hosts. So into day activities, I think that is brilliant. That'll probably work, flights and all that stuff, that's complete nonsense, you know. And so
we'll come to Steve for that reaction.
But if you look at, for instance, Uber, so what they're now expanding into, you know, Uber Eats and all that stuff, I mean, that's absolutely brilliant, because that works perfectly with the model and the network and how everything is set up there. But I think that, you know, at least from Airbnb point of view, you know, expanding beyond that, I can't see. Definitely not flights, you know. So.
Okay. Do you like Airbnb? Yeah. As a user, but yes, but as a brand that is in the industry.
You know, I think it's an interesting line of sort of question in terms of what Airbnb are wanting to do to try and join the dots. And it's maybe the holy grail that a lot of the travel businesses are pursuing. Yeah. We're doing the same at Kiwi.com. You know, yes, we're a flight search tool, and we have still a very fast growing website and app, but product development is what it's all about for us right now. So we're looking at multimodal transportation. We already sell hotels through Booking.com, but we're also looking at introducing dynamic packaging.
That's quite a leap from just doing flights, though, isn't it?
Well, it is, but you know, we need to continue growing the business, and getting different lines of business is a really important part of that growth.
Okay, and you know, when can we expect to see some of those things happening?
Yeah, there's a lot planned for this year.
So it's this year, sure, you would say.
Yeah.
Okay, and you are going to go up against some serious people again, especially those that are, as you say, going to do the end-to-end. And I think, you know, between the pair of them, just to talk a little bit about what they have in terms of marketing muscle, how do you compete with that? Like, it's 10 billion plus between the pair of them.
You can't compete directly, right?
Well, no, of course.
And
so
I used to work for Expedia, so I've got first-hand experience. What we're doing really is offering a slightly different product experience. So effectively, Kiwi.com connects the unconnected. We have the ability to put together flight itineraries that would otherwise take you a ton of time to research yourself. So our search algorithm powers those search results. We add increased levels of convenience by actually checking you in and serving up your booking passes and so on. So as I mentioned earlier, even though it's the world's largest industry at $1.3 trillion, and the two largest players only make up sort of less than 10%, that provides gaps, right? It's still relatively fragmented as an overall industry, and that's where we are positioned ourselves as a business.
Okay, and so we're here at the beginning of this week, Phocuswright Europe. It's a bunch of startups on stage and established companies showing off some of the new stuff that they're doing. Apart from data and attribution stuff, what kind of things do you think excite people that are in there? I mean, is it all, you know, you couldn't move for people talking about big data a couple of years ago, and last year and maybe this year will be blockchain and things like that. But what other kind of stuff do you think the industry needs from, you know, innovation?
I think it's very exciting to see how there are still tons of startups in this space. Yep. You know, you'd think that really the travel industry has been going for long enough. There's no more opportunity. You know, it's a sort of kind of a saturated market in terms of players, but that's not the case at all. Even this morning, just hearing from a couple of startup presenters about their ideas and where they go. Sanctify was one. Great product. You know, and it always kind of surprises me that there are still gaps and opportunities that exist in this big marketplace. Yeah. But somebody will always come up with another plan and something different, which is great.
Okay. So you're all at different stages of your businesses. So you've been around for how many years is it now, Travis?
So TourRadar since 2010. So yeah.
Wow, it's 8 years now.
Yeah.
Crikey, yeah.
Wow.
So, and it's a couple of years.
6 years now.
6 years.
Yeah.
And what, 75 I think it is for TravelStart?
Yeah, or maybe even earlier.
But you know, how do you think about running your businesses now that you are at, you know, you've gone past the startup stage. You know, you've recently raised some money. You raised some money a couple of years ago, even though you were, what, 15, 20 years old at that point?
At the time we were, well, yeah, you could say we were almost 15 years old at the time. Yeah, we were, yeah.
So what was the thinking behind that? Is it because you wanted to expand And you couldn't do it off of your own fuel at the
there
time?
There were several reasons behind that. You know, I'm a sole founder of the company. You know, I had all my eggs in one basket. You know, I didn't really have a partner, and I sort of realized that, you know, the next step for the company was not, you know, opening up in a new country or, you know, getting a new vertical. It was actually to grow as a company, and I realized that we had a couple of ways to go. You know, continue the way we were doing. I didn't want to do that. I was tired of that and been doing that for such a long time, or sell the company. Okay, and in the process of, you know, looking at selling the company, I realized, oh, you know what? I'll probably need a backer who vouch to tell people that we are what we, you know, say that we are. So, and in that process, I thought, okay, I need a partner, and then it was very simple, because then it was not only about the money, it was actually about the people in the firm. So, so I was lucky enough to, you know, be introduced to Amadeus Capital, and I think we hit it off, and not immediately, but after a couple of times, and they brought in, you know, the largest telecom operator on the African continent, and I really liked them a lot as well. And I realized for them both it was a long game, and I thought, you know, so the next step is really trying to build a sustainable, you know, long-term company that can sort of grow beyond what I sort of ever, you know, imagined. So that's sort of the journey we're on now, and that's, you know, exciting. You know.
I remember listening to I think it was This Week in Startups, one of the other podcasts a couple of years ago, and they were saying, you know, you get certain type of people that are addicted to kind of doing startups. And Travis, you know, what bit have you enjoyed the most, and which bit have you enjoyed the least? I mean, you're in a good spot now, you said right at the beginning, but did you really like the bit at the beginning, the very beginning, when you were dreaming up the ideas and hiring teams and all that kind of stuff? Was that bit more fun than it is now?
I think it's just different. I wouldn't say more fun. I think seeing the success come now and see how well things are going in the team we've built, and the, you know, enthusiastic, motivated people we have in the team, get excited about something that was the brainchild of my brother and I, you know, 10 years ago, I think is actually amazing to see that. So when you're kind of, you can't have your fingers kind of everywhere, or, you know, have a view of everything, but occasionally I'll see something happen in the company, or a new product or a new marketing promotion we do. I'm like, wow, I would never have kind of thought about that. And it's great to see it's starting to take a life of its own, and not kind of just be driven by myself and Sean. So yeah,
it's interesting. I interviewed Jens, the CEO of Blacklane, a couple of months ago at ITB. And he was saying, you know, the biggest challenge that they have is just maintaining the culture that they had when they were 20 guys in a little startup work-up space in Berlin, and they've got a couple of hundred now. He said, as the CEO, he finds that really hard, because you start getting little cliques within departments and stuff like that. I mean, maybe you haven't got to that stage yet, but does that worry you about maintaining the culture that you had?
Yeah, I think if I had to say what keeps me up at night is actually maintaining that, because if you've got the right culture, the company will always kind of go in the right direction, I feel. And I do a lot of thinking around that. We have like a task force internally where we meet once every 2 months, I think, to come up with initiatives we want to do to keep company culture, to keep transparency, to keep everyone kind of happy. And we also do what's called a CFO event once a month. So a Chief Fun Officer is designated. Chief Fun Officer. Yeah, okay. And they have to organize an event in each of the office. Like last month, what was it? I think it was a wine, like a winery tour. There's also like days where it's movie night. So it's basically keeping the team together outside of the office. Okay. So yeah, trying to do fun things like that.
We'll start wrapping up now. Yeah. You've given me an idea then. So if you are, presumably you're, you know, on the marketing team, so that's inherently fun.
Yeah,
right?
It should be.
So if you're the Chief Fun Officer as well of Kiwi.com, what are some of the things that you do to keep everybody amused and motivated?
We have some pretty awesome parties, actually. Okay. So yeah, you know, a couple of times a year. And it's an important part, you know, echoing what you just said about culture, is how do you keep everyone motivated around what should be a fun environment? Yeah. You know, Kiwi.com has now grown to 1,900 employees worldwide in 5 to 6 years, so it's phenomenal growth. And then maintaining the culture and really being true to your roots it can be a bit of a challenge. But yeah, we have I have an internal communications team as well who are charged with really making sure that everyone's on the same page and keeping some level of consistency in terms of comms around the business. But yeah, making it fun.
So I'm presuming, Stephan, that you're the Chief Fun Officer as well, right?
Well, if it's the CFO, you know, I would say rather CF ... you know, officer, the Chief War Officer. So I think I have a bit of a different take on this, you know, and I think that. So we of course do all those things that you say, and you know we print T-shirts for just about everything, you know, but the thing that I find that really brings people together, it's you know when you have a goal that is so important that you basically die if you don't do it, you know, and that is really what I find that builds a proper culture.
Okay.
And so
the imminent threat of death if they don't succeed, is it?
Yes. Well, I mean, you know, the thing is that, you know, if you've ever done the army, you know, you get very close to the people, you know, you are with there. And actually, so our company's been near death so many times in the past that, and those people who were with us in those times, those are really the people that carries the company, because they can still, you know, smell the blood in their mouth from time to time. And I. Sorry for being so graphic.
No, this is terrific. You carry on.
But that's really what I found. That's really what defines, you know, the culture in our company. And it's when we forget that and start to talk about the culture and all these beautiful things on the wall, that's when we lose it. And I think to a certain degree, success, you know, breeds complacency, and that is a danger, you know.
Okay. Well, I hope there's no more blood curdling in the mouth moments in the future. So thank you, Stephan. Thank you, Travis, and thank you, Steve, for joining us on the PundIT Show. Thanks ever so much.